yourself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
And He will lift you up. And He will lift you up. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound
That saved a wretch like me. That saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years.
10,000 years.
When we've been there 10,000 years.
10,000 years.
Bright shining as the sun. Shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise.
We've no less days to sing God's praise.
We've no less days to sing God's praise.
To sing God's praise
Than when we first begun. Than when we first begun. So humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
So humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
And He will lift you up. And He will lift you up. And He will lift you up. You are. Holy words long preserved for our walk in this world. They resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Words of life, words of hope, give us strength, help us go. In this world, where'er we roam, ancient words will guide us home. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Holy words of our faith, handed down to this age, come to us through sacrifice. Oh, heed the faithful word of Christ. Holy words long preserved for our walk in this world. They resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart.
Known before the
Seen in future days, Jesus, Son of God,
sent as David's
saint and ageless King, in all the earth exalted,
seen with blinded
heard by heedless ears, the Son of God,
worshipped with content,
with blood and thorns on a cross, exalted,
scorned by those who
mocked by all the world,
is the Son of
God,
born to take my
came to give me love, the Son of God, exalted, exalted. We love you, we worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Jesus, we love you, we worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Spirit, we love you, we worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Holy Spirit. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. And in keeping of them there is great reward, there is great reward. And in keeping of them there is great reward. In need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me, in need of Christ, the perfect Lamb, my refuge strong, the great I am. This is my song, my humble plea. I am your child, I am in need of grace, in need of love, in need of mercy raining down from high above, in need of strength, in need of peace, in need of things that only you can give to me, in need of Christ, the perfect Lamb, my refuge strong, the great I am. This is my song, my humble plea. I am your child, I am in need of Christ, the perfect Lamb, my refuge strong, the great I am. This is my song, my humble plea. I am your child, I am in need. I am your child, I am in need.
Good morning and welcome to your Pathway Home. It's Matthew Allen with Jim Gershon.
Where's Kane? Yeah, hi, Matt. Good morning.
Well, Kane is away from us this week. He took some well-deserved time off. There's a significant person that he wants to see down south, so he's down there with her family, and that's great.
Oh, I thought you was talking about his mom.
Oh, well, I think he actually got to see his mom and,
Okay.
and his dad on this trip. That's good. And,
Yeah.
you know, it'll be different today without him, but I think we'll survive.
Yeah, we'll make it. We may not have to close off at 8:40.
Oh, well. Yeah. Well, we hope all of you are doing well this morning. It is a beautiful summer morning here in Dayton. It feels like Texas when you walk outside, Jim.
Well, I don't know about that. I haven't been to Texas that much, but the thunderstorm, the lightning and thunder last night while I was sleeping got kind of intense a couple times.
Well,
And
yeah.
and the humidity is back in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but despite all of that, the air conditioner works here at Cornerstone.
Yeah.
And we want you to come be a guest with us today at our worship and Bible classes that'll begin here in a little bit. And I hope you can be a part of that. We have classes for children all the way back to just little, a year old and up. And then we have our adult classes today, and then our worship will begin at 10:45. So we just want you to be a part of us. Last week, Jim, I've been preaching a very long time, and with a number of churches, we had 55 guests, and 47 of those from the Dayton area. Everywhere I looked last Sunday, there was someone that I didn't know or I'd seen before but knew they were visiting. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it was, I'll tell you, the openness of us wanting people to come and be with us because of the love that's here. That message of loving God and serving each other and helping each other get to heaven is such an important message. And I love to see it. We had 47, 48 people from the congregation on vacation last week.
Yeah.
Still had almost 200 people, and which is really nice. The building's full, and we just love that. And we love to have new people come in and recognize this is about God. And this is about loving God and loving our brothers and sisters in Christ, and getting this and helping each one of us get to heaven. Having the attitude that we love each other so much that we want to help one another on that path.
You know,
and I love that.
If you're looking for a church, we want you to certainly come check us out and spend some time here, get to know us. One of the things we continually hear is that the spirit here is one that's of love and openness, and that's exactly, I think, the atmosphere that you want when you're looking for a church. I was just blown away. We had almost 100 people down at our home last night. One of our former elders here turned 90 late last week, and so we were able to spend some time with him and just be together last night. And when you come here and you become part of this family, this is not something we're just together twice a week or even once a week like most churches are. We are in each other's homes. We are together, and you get a family.
Yeah.
And it's one where people love and care for one another and see to the needs that need to be met. It's incredible. My mom was in the hospital earlier this week, and we're just now getting back to the point where you can visit in hospitals again.
Yeah.
And I know on Tuesday there were a lot of people that were in there to see her, and that means a lot to us. And that's just one of the things about being a part of a family. We talk about it here, the Cornerstone family, and it is it's real. It's
Yeah.
not just a byword.
Well, and last night being at the get together for Brother Dick, we had one of our members' parents came with them, and I got to talk to his father. And his father just talked about how we had taken his son and his son's wife and their family and just enveloped them and made them our family. And he said, I'm so impressed. He was diagnosed with cancer. He said, I got cards from members of your congregation that were so uplifting. He said, I don't even know them by face.
Yeah.
But Mike brought the fact that his dad was diagnosed with cancer. Pray for my dad. And the prayers went out, but not only that, they found the address and they sent his dad a card. And we're here to encourage each other and to let God's love be seen in the things that we do, the way that we treat each other, and may that continue to grow. And the areas where we fail in, help us to overcome those things, because we want to be God's family right here. And I see Rose is in here this morning, and so many people from across the country. And Rose was able to visit, and it was just such a pleasant situation.
Yeah.
Her coming to be with the family, and really enjoyed that.
And Skip's watching this morning, and Becky and I have been working on Skip, telling him to drive across the country and come see us.
Yeah.
And
I'd love that. If not, Skip, I may have to come to Arizona.
and Becky's watching from Maine this morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
And just so many of you tuning in. We appreciate it. Rich's mom from Florida tuned in this morning.
Yeah.
And just Greg and Danita up in Wisconsin. I hope you're way up in Wisconsin. It just gets so nice when you get way up in Wisconsin. I hope you're enjoying your time off up there. And just good to see all of you here with us today. Jim, we had a great discussion last week out of Luke chapter 10 with the Good Samaritan. Now, one of the things with this, I think a lot of us are very familiar with the story. We introduced the context kind of leading up to that. Kane did a great job of doing that last week as far as getting us acquainted with how Jesus gets to this, and maybe some of the rationale for why Jesus uses this story in this place at this time to help people understand the importance of serving others, and that some of the people that we may just write off as being too difficult to deal with, or we may just automatically pre-assign and say those are bad people. This story blows all of that out of the water and says that really we need to humble ourselves. And this is not so much about Christian profession as it is about Christian action.
Yeah.
And Kane did a great job in kind of expounding on that last Sunday, I think. This is where you get out of the huddle and you actually call and run a play, to use a football analogy, and you actually do something. And in the mind of the priest and the Levite, they were justified in not helping in that story, but the Samaritan is the one that actually did something and saw to the need to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think about this too as you look at this in Luke chapter 10. When he's approached by a lawyer of course is concerned about law. And so he's going to ask him a question about law. And let me just say this. I want you to think about law in general. There's laws all over this country. But stand your ground law. Some of you may know what that is. But what's the interpretation of that? And how do you apply that? And I'll tell you that people would probably apply that rule different. And then they're going to be called into court because it's going to be determined how they should apply that law. Okay, so when the attorney asked him this question, Jesus asked him, what does the law say? Okay, so tell me what the law says. But after he tells him what the law says, Jesus says, let me show you the interpretation of the law.
You're right.
Okay, so law is always good. When God gives law, it's always good, and it is the perfect for us. But understanding sometimes the interpretation of what that means, we don't get it at times. And so here's the situation where Jesus gives this account to him to show him the application of what he just said. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Right.
And love your neighbors yourself.
Here's his answer here, verse 27, which is what you just quoted, Jim. And then he goes on, and Jesus says here, you've answered correctly.
Yep.
You know what this says, and do it, and you'll live. But one of the things here is a lot of us have grown up in the church. I'll just use myself as an example. I've been going to church since I was 2 years old. Grew up going to Bible class every Sunday. There's only been maybe when I was 19 or 20, an extended period of time where I wasn't in church, and much to my parents' dismay and trouble. But kind of got back on track there, and so on and so forth. But I've been in church my whole life. I've heard this story. I know what the Bible says. all right? I can kind of identify with this guy,
Yeah.
all right? But there's still something missing here,
Yeah.
okay? And maybe in verse 29, when he begins to justify himself and ask this question, you can kind of hear the haughtiness, I think. Who is my neighbor? You know, and I can just envision this lawyer kind of looking down through his nose. You know, I've arrived. I do all this. This is simple stuff. I'm already loving the Lord. I keep all the rules. I can just hear it right now. All right, I could identify with this guy, and maybe that's some of the motivation back behind his answer. And so then Jesus, beginning verse 30, Jesus goes into the story.
Yeah, and I think one of the things here is understanding the application of this sometimes becomes harder to us because we get focused on our concept of law instead of the application of law. And here's a situation where Jesus gives an example, a great example of who our neighbor is and how fulfilling the command of loving God and loving our neighbor looks. And when he gets done, I think it's very interesting. Jesus then poses him a question. Mm-hmm. And he says, okay, so I've just given you this example. Now, which one do you think is a neighbor to this person that fell among the robber? And so now he's put the ball in the other court.
Yeah.
He said, okay, so you understand you need to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. But in this story, which he gives him, he shows the attitude of some people. Is that attitude acceptable? And he's asking him and asking him when he's given it, here's the priest, here's the Levite, here's their action, here's what they did. Are they holy, righteous men and acting that way? And he asked that question without even asking it.
Yeah.
Because he says, which one of these is the fulfillment of that commandment? And I think there's times when we have to stop, and as we look at the law, think about what is the fulfillment of that. The law itself is not the fulfillment. The application is the fulfillment. And we sometimes miss the application because we get wrapped up. It's important for us to honor God, but we need to keep our focus on when Jesus makes his statement, he says, in these two things, all the law and the prophet are fulfilled, in loving God and loving our neighbor. Every law has to do with those things. So getting back to that concept is pretty important.
You know, Jim, I think one of the things that really stands out to me is and where we're at in a culture right now. Can you believe this? 2 years ago, we were coming up, I guess here in about a week or two, it's been 2 years since that mass shooting in downtown Dayton, down in the Oregon district. 9 people killed. And, in the week after that, the president came, and everybody's gathered downtown, and maybe the governor was there. I can't remember now. It all kind of runs together, but they're standing there, the politicians are up there, and they're making their standard speeches, and everybody out in the crowd is shouting, do something, do something. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I really feel like we're in a cultural moment, just zooming out, where we have this expectation, do something, do something. Quit talking about it, quit huddling up, and just get out there and do it. And I think one of the really troubling aspects, and maybe this is why there are a lot of churches that aren't growing as they should, they're spending every Sunday and Wednesday huddling and talking about what they need to be doing, but are failing in the actual application of doing. And we can sit back and look, I think about congregations that are ripping themselves up over issues. I am shocked. I have a little insight into what some congregations buy for their teaching material One congregation that they bought a whole set of workbooks. Somebody's written a workbook on the head covering issue. And they were going to, and I don't want to dismiss the issue. We need to know what 1 Corinthians 11 teaches on that. But we're going to spend all this time debating an issue that really is a side issue.
Yeah.
And really, in a lot of places, just gets people worked up over stuff. And meanwhile, we have 50,000 people driving down the road out here every day that are lost.
Yeah, and if I could make a challenge to all of us, I've made the challenge to me and really been working on it. First of all, as you start your morning with prayer, petition God to put people in your way that you can mention Him to, or that you can talk about your faith with, or that you can just mention that you have faith and that you're a Christian, and use that opportunity to just plant a seed. I'm so amazed at how many times God will put you in a situation and where you can tell somebody, well, I don't do this because I'm usually working with the congregation or the church where I'm at and the members, and so I don't have time to do this or do that. Or somebody will bring up something and an answer that's in the Bible said, well, the Lord said this. There's times presented to you, I would almost tell you every day you're going to find, if you're out dealing with the public, and not just dealing with one another, but dealing with the public. The huddle thing is, yes, we're here to encourage one another, but it's the world that's dying in sin.
Right.
And we're walking by on the other side of the road. And the idea of talking Jesus and talking God's love, it belongs inside the church, but it belongs outside the church. We can't help the world if we're not being neighbors and letting them know there's an answer to their problems. And that answer is not indoctrination immediately. The answer, the answer to that is teaching them that God loves them. I hear people all the time say, I don't believe in God. God to me is painful. They don't know who God is.
Yeah.
There's a world that does not know who God is, and they're only going to see that by us walking across the road and picking them up.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge to us. It's a challenge, but right now the theme that we're using around here is come alongside people. When we see something wrong, be the Good Samaritan. Walk up and bind up wounds and help people and encourage people. And that's, in this message, that's how we love, not by assembling together ourselves. It's important that we assemble together, but that's not where the work of the gospel takes place, inside this building. The work of the gospel takes place outside this building.
And that's one of the things that we have tried to embrace here and are embracing here at Cornerstone, getting the message out and interacting with and look, this is done. I think this is done in very practical ways. We have a group of sisters here that all have younger kids, and they have playtime where they get their kids together and let them play, and the ladies will sit at the park, or they'll go here or go there, and they spend that time together. And I have noticed and heard through, I've not been there, but I've heard about them inviting people that are visiting with us to be part of that. And that's where those connections are made, those relationships are built. And the ground is prepared where the seed can be sown. And it's just little things like that where we're including people in the things we're doing. This is why, for example, a lot of our small groups that are just getting started, that's kind of the idea behind that, Jim, is to have it where people can have those non-threatening ways to be integrated in and see us in action and feel more comfortable. I think what we're doing here with Your Pathway Home and with our live stream, we have had people that have been watching us now for over the course of 1 or 2 years, and then they'll walk in the door, and they already feel comfortable.
Yep.
Because they know who we are. They know several of us because they've been watching us, and that has made a tremendous impact for us over the last almost 2 years with it. Actually, this program's been on for 3, but it's really the last 18 months been amazing.
You know, Wes made a comment on here, and I think this is absolutely along with the Good Samaritan. God has given us what we need to know and what we need to do. And in this account, what we see a priest and a Levite making a judgment and walking by on the other side. The question is in making that judgment, was that God's law or was that their law? And that's how they enforced their law, by ignoring the need of this other person. God is going to judge law, and he's going to judge the intent and the purpose of a person's heart. He knows it. He's perfect. He'll never be wrong with that. But what Jesus has said here is the primary law to guide yourself. Your love towards God and your love towards others. And God knows when I show that and when I don't show that. He knows when I walk by on the other side and when I ignore the pain and the needs of other people. And he knows when I do that. Now, I'm just telling you, as I look at this story, I'm thankful that there's a loving and merciful God and he's going to be my judge. But while I'm thankful for that, I better not be thinking, well, yeah, he's merciful and gracious, so I can just turn my head and ignore what I'm supposed to be doing. And here's the Samaritan who had different belief system than the Levite and the priest. But he demonstrated God's law. He didn't just say he believed it, he demonstrated it by his actions. And we are called to action. You know, we're not called just to state things that we believe. We're called to action in the way that we treat other people, in the way that we view their situation, binding up their wounds and helping them and bringing them to better knowledge of God. God is love. And that is something that we really have to focus on, how we demonstrate that.
And Greg writing in talks about this too, and I love his quote here: "Your actions are speaking so loudly that I can't hear what you're saying."
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's it. That's where we're going with this. You know, it's not so much. I mean, look, people don't care about what you believe. They'll actually care more about what you believe when they see you work carrying those beliefs out. And so, really, the question for us is, I want us to think practically. How can we put to work some of the things that we talk about? Okay, a lot of us that have grown up in the church think programs. I think we've complicated it with programs. This is really something much more simple and organic, as Kate would probably say if he were here this morning. And it is simply by, like I mentioned a moment ago, what this one family is doing with getting their families together and at the park, or you're inviting someone over into your home for dinner. Or, hey, I've got to take this road trip. Will you go with me? Whatever it is. And you spend those important time together. You spend that time together, and boy, does that make a difference. And that's the way, that's the way you're going to be able to get into people's lives today, because most of us have walls up. We're skeptical. We're suspicious. Somebody comes and knocks on my door. I'm like, what do you want? And why are you here? You know, so, you know, we know that is something that doesn't work as effective anymore, but where it works is with relationships and being involved in the lives of people.
Yeah, and Jesus, in the basic sermon, his first sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, where we look at all these kingdom principles, his statement is, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on the hill cannot be hid. Do people see the example of God through us in the things that we do and say to people in the world that do not know the Lord? And it's not only people in the world, but the way we treat each other and the way that we deal with each other. When you go through the Sermon on the Mount and you hear what Jesus is saying about so many things, he talks about loving your enemies. In chapter 5, verse 43, you have heard that it said, you shall love your neighbors and hate your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies. Pray for those that persecute you. You know, there's a different mindset. It's not about how things affect me, but it's about the need of that person to learn God through me. And you know, our righteousness is as filthy rags, Isaiah said. We're never going to be good enough to deserve what God has done for us, His grace and His mercy. But that doesn't mean just because we can't deserve it that we don't live it out. You know, we need to be living out God's grace and mercy through the way that we treat other people and people that are strangers. And I'll just bring this up, and Kane has brought this up before. We go out to eat in a restaurant. How do you treat the people that's serving you?
Yeah.
You know, you go into a business and something has gone wrong. When you go back to deal with that, how do you handle that situation that shows you care about their feelings? You care about being a good example. This story is about your heart shows by the way that you deal with things.
And to add to that, there are so many comments that's come in, it's hard to keep up, Jim.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to Rich Walker, who mentions a scene in The Chosen, and uses that as a teaching moment, and how they look at others who need the gospel. That's another important part of this. It would have been easy for the Samaritan man to walk by. Look, he puts himself in personal danger.
Yeah.
All right. By stopping. All right. Number one, you're in a treacherous area. The idea is you got to keep going. You got to, for your own personal safety, you got to keep going. What if this is a trap? What if this is something where the guy's out there faking the injuries and there's people waiting back behind the bushes to come after you? He throws all personal regard for safety and his own life to serve this person. He does, you know, it could have, well, the minute I deal with this, I'm going to be unclean. I'm going to be out of my schedule. My life's going to be messed up. All of that is just thrown to the side, and action is taken without personal regard. There's no selfishness in this at all.
Yeah.
It is complete and total regard for the other person. Doesn't matter who the other person is. Every person has a soul. Every person has worth. Every person has value. And again, that's something I think we're missing in this culture today.
Well, and let's make it personal. I've missed this, and the idea that I am righteous only to this group of people, or only in my family or whatever. You know, the light that's supposed to come out from children is not contained only in here. And seeing the needs and the hurts of other people is not only what we do right here. And I think that you know, Greg makes another statement here, Luke 6:45. The good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth what is good. That's not just inside this building. It's outside this building.
Galatians 6:10, let us do good unto all, especially to those in the household of faith.
Yeah.
But the emphasis there in the first part of the verse, let us do good unto all.
Yeah, and here's the struggle that I'm having. When I can't even do that correctly with this body and with my own family, there's growth that I need to be attaining. Because how am I going to love the world if I can't love the people that I agree with the most? You know, and when there's struggle, when there's strife going on inside that's hard to deal with. And I got to look at me and say, listen, I don't need to be bringing up bitterness and bringing up anger and all. I need to be loving, being patient, long-suffering, and encouraging, and those things that we sometimes bite and devour one another with. And so when Paul's dealing with this, he said, you need to be careful that you don't consume one another.
Right.
You know, we are here to encourage and uplift and build up, and we're to take that mentality out of these pews and into the world. And I failed so much at that, and I've seen it more clearly day by day that that my faith is not about this moment in time right here.
You know, Kevin writing in this morning, I think Kevin is writing while he's in the hospital. And Kevin, we hope you're doing okay and hope you're feeling better this morning. We had seen last night that you were not feeling well, so we hope all is better this morning. But thank you for writing in. And Kevin, you're echoing exactly what Jim has just said with this. And I love what you say here. This man invested the time right there and right then for caring for this person. It wasn't, I'm just going to throw some money at it and problem solved. It is that care and compassion. Look, that is why, Jesus came and lived here.
Yeah.
He could have just made a simple command, been impersonal, whatever. Instead, he came and lived here and showed and demonstrated that care and compassion for us, all of us who didn't deserve it. And that's just an amazing thing.
And I look at Jesus, and you know who he had the most trouble with? He had the most trouble with people that thought they knew it all.
Yeah.
He had the most trouble with people that were righteous in their own eyes. He saw the ones that were unrighteous, and he had compassion on them. He had love for them. He wanted to help them. But those that thought they were righteous, that held their standards above everybody else, he was detested by them. And I think there's a lesson for us, the humility that we need to approach each other with. And here's the same thing. Here's this Samaritan. Nobody likes him, cares about him, or anything. They think he's a dog. But he's the one that could feel compassion because he knew maybe how unworthy he was, and that he would take care of somebody else. The priest and the Levite, they looked at everybody, they looked down their noses at everybody else. And they don't have time for that. So me, instead of looking down my nose at everybody else, I need to be a person that recognizes how much I'm in need of God's mercy and God's grace and his forgiveness and his compassion, because that's what God offers those of us that struggle.
Well, Jim, we've come through 8:30 now.
Wow.
So, pretty amazing.
I love that, by the way, Matt writes a narrative here, and I just think he should publish. When I got this a couple weeks ago, and we were going to do this, I thought, man, you could spend a year on just discussing some of this stuff.
You really could. There's so much here.
And making the application to ourselves. This isn't about Matt and I already have all this solved. It's about the fact that the Good Samaritan still teaches us on the attitude of heart that God wants from his people. And I think that's important for all of us that are, whether you're listening or whether you're reading it yourself. What does God require of me?
Yeah, always good to get into this story and revisit. Even though it's probably one of the most familiar of Jesus' parables, I think it is one that is worthy of our time and consideration. Look, Luke would not have included this if it weren't important for us to give consideration to. So we certainly have done that over the last couple of weeks. We want you to come back next week. We're going to continue looking through some of Jesus' parables, and starting next week, Cain will be back, and we'll be looking in Luke 11, looking at the first 13 verses, talking about the friend at midnight. So that's our plan for next week. And in the meantime, come out and be with us at Cornerstone today. 9:30 is our Bible class start time. 10:45 is our worship. We want to see you in person today. 5051 Wilmington Pike here on the southeast side of Dayton. We're 30 seconds off of the interstate. Exit 7 off of 675. We just want you to come up, come see us. Easy to get in here. And you'll be comfortable and loved and be challenged by the preaching and the teaching that goes on here. And we want you to be a part of that. Jim, as always, thank you.
Yeah, I'm enjoying.
And we'll see you next week. God bless you.
is sure, making wise the simple. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the honeycomb. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. More to be